Here in the third block of the Cultural Hall, it is my friend Corey K. Ward. We call him the Pharaoh around here. He comes in and talks about all things temple. We call it the temple ticker. And stick around to the end of this because I'm not saying that he's a prophet. I am saying he is a Pharaoh. He's going to do 10 temple predictions that may occur this weekend at General Conference. Then he's got some honorable mentions like, hey, maybe this will be where it is. You can play along when you actually listen to General Conference and see just how much of a prophet slash Pharaoh Corey K. Ward is. But we get into the temple ticker with some temple news. How are you, sir?
Good. Is a pharaoh better than a prophet?
Well, I listen. I think that's there's a whole chapter about it in Maccabees, but we don't follow that, so I'm not sure. But it is.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
a sermon. Is your Pharaoh doth better than a prophet? Sayest thou this thyself, or did others tell it thee? I don't know. Uh, the debate is up for you. There has been a ton of temple news since we chatted last. Not necessarily anything groundbreaking, but if you'll forgive that pun, but just it seems like every time I open my news fetchers about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there is something about a temple somewhere. Uh, shall we start in Moses Lake, Washington?
Yeah, so temple dedication was announced for the temple that's being built in Moses Lake. So they're gonna have an open house on August 4th through the 19th. And then the dedication will be September 17th by Quinton. And if you that date is familiar, that is the same date that I think the Bentonville and the Brazil temple will be dedicated. So this is the third temple that will be dedicated on September 17th. And if you're wondering, has that ever happened before? It actually has not technically happened. I
Now you
looked it
say
up.
technically, so split that hair for me.
Sure. Back in May 2000, there were three temples dedicated on a single weekend. So I think it was President Monson. He went from Tampico, Mexico to Villahermosa, Mexico. So he did one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday. And then that same Sunday, President Faust did one as well. So that same weekend, there were like three dedicated, but they weren't dedicated the same day. So
Is,
this will be a first.
is there anything significant with the church and September 17th? Any sort of symbolism? You know how like we have April 6th and we have some other days. Is there anything like that?
I think it's Constitution Day, right?
Okay.
I think I remember the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania temple was the ground was broken this day, and they were like, "Hey, it's Constitution Day. We're in the city where it was signed." So I mean, it's been commemorated before by the church. I don't know if in Brazil, they'll be celebrating Constitution Day, but
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. But interesting to note that it's even Constitution Day. I had no idea. You know what it also is. You know what day that is also.
tell me,
That day is also Wife Appreciation Day. It's also
your wife?
Australian Citizenship Day,
Okay.
International Country Music Day, International Patient Safety Day, National Pet Bird Day, International Grenache Day, National Apple Dumpling Day, National Ariel K. Starrett Day. No idea who that is off the top of my head. National Lobby Day, National Monte Cristo Day. That's what it is. That's what it is. They're celebrating the Monte Cristo sandwich.
I like it. Yeah.
In honor of the three temples, sit down and have a good Monte Cristo sandwich. Okay,
I,
so
I was thinking Dale Renlund, he's going to be in Brasilia. He's celebrating the patient safety. He's that
okay,
heart surgeon guy. Yeah, I don't know.
there's a connection, and they all have wives. That's what they're doing. They're celebrating their wives. Is there any chance, knowing that we have some temples that could still open house, etc., that there could be a fourth temple dedication, or are we probably too late into the year for something like
It's
that to
possible.
still
Yeah,
come
it's
about?
possible. In terms of records, if you were to have, there were six dedications in the month of April 2000.
Hmm.
And then if you're talking about the same week, President Hinckley from June 11th to June 18th, 2000, he dedicated four temples. So you could break any of those records. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right, bring it on. Bring it on. We go then to Feather River, which is my favorite thing to say, sort of like a cartoon character from Looney Tunes. Feather River. It's
Yeah, and
California.
what makes me think that maybe they're done with the 17th of September is that this Feather River, California temple was announced for the 8th of October. So maybe
Mhm.
they're kind of down the schedule now. So the open house will be the August 19th through the September 9th, and it'll be dedicated by Elder Suarez on the 8th of October, just that weekend after General Conference.
And then some sites. Everyone saying, "Hey, where's this? What that?" And I know the big one, at least close-ish to me, is up in Cody, Wyoming.
That's right. It was announced that we built west of Skyline Drive in an empty farmer's field, just north of the Cody Canal, south of the Sulphur Creek. So sounds very Wyoming.
Mhm. Doesn't it? No, it's right next to the canal over by the creek. By the
That's
creek?
right.
Yeah, that's right, over by the creek.
It's gonna be just under 10,000 square feet. So probably about that same design as Casper. It'll be the third in Wyoming after Casper and Star Valley. And if Cody also sounds familiar, the church has a historic site in Cody. They have the historic Cody Mural and Museum, which is like connected to a chapel there in Cody. So it features murals painted by Edward Grigware, who he tells the story of the church in the Western U.S. And he's actually a non-member, but he painted some murals in the Los Angeles Temple.
Interesting. And the church owns that historic site there, the
Mhm.
historic Cody Mural and Museum. I've never been. That seems like a thing that I should go see.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna road trip. We'll do that as a practice trip for our Montana trip. I'm pretty sure Cody's a lot closer than Helena, so we'll do
It's
that.
still kind of far.
Well, sure, but I want to make sure your snack game is on point and that I'm going to be able to put up with you in the car for that long. So we'll do that as kind of a trial run. We'll check that out.
Okay.
The Guatemala Temple. How do you say the name of the city that's in?
Way Tenango.
Oh, that's way cooler than I thought it was going to be.
Cool. So it's going to be built in the northwest corner of the city, right there across from a meeting house. Interestingly, the meeting house belongs to the Zion ward, the Zion ward. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be also around 10,000 square foot, and it's the fifth temple in Guatemala.
Wow, that's crazy to me. I mean, we have 135 just in the state of Utah alone. But when you start hearing like the fifth in Guatemala, the seventh in Mexico, on and on and on,
Yeah.
that's pretty tremendous. And I love that it is built in Zion. Then we go to Tampa, Florida. This one I'm curious about. Give all the news about it, and then I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, we heard earlier that it's going to be built in Valrico, just behind the meeting house there. It's going to be 30,000 square foot. So we saw the rendering of the temple. It looks kind of like, if you're familiar with how the Knoxville, Tennessee temple will look like, looks kind of like that, but then it's kind of the style of the Yorba Linda, California temple, kind of like a Spanish colonial design. So I like it.
Now, is Tampa, because it's three times as big as like the Cody Temple? Is the membership of the church that much larger? Is it because it's a potential vacation destination for members of the church? Why is it so much bigger than some of these other ones? Where I guess in my mind, I don't think there's that many members of the church.
Good point. If I were deciding the size of temples, it wouldn't necessarily be the way that it turns out.
Uh huh.
Um, so I really don't know. There's about actually the same amount of stakes. There's like 4 or 5 stakes in the Tampa area, and I mean in Cody, there's the one in Cody, and then a few other ones. So I guess there's a little bit more, probably a little bit more membership in Tampa.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I guess when I just see that, I think sort of there's lots of places that I'm like, yeah, 10, 15,000, maybe 20,000 at the max. But when you see something this big, it's like, okay, is there something going on there that I'm unaware of? Is there lots more members? I don't know. It's where my mind goes. I was talking actually yesterday. There's a kid that I mentor, which is a horrible mistake. Parents, don't ask me to be your kid's mentor, but he lives in the Richmond, Virginia Temple District, and he recently went to the Richmond, Virginia Temple, which is what you have next on your list.
Yeah, the open house started on March 25th. It's going to go through the 15th of April. And it'll be dedicated on the 7th of May. So it opened to the media last week, and they highlighted the design of the temple, which they is kind of like takes after Jeffersonian architecture, which is famous there in Southern Virginia. You see some buildings like the University of Virginia, I think it's a library,
Hmm.
and then the Monticello um, house, I guess, plantation where Jefferson resided. So they showed that a lot of the pillars kind of look similar. They used dogwood flowers. They used octagons throughout the temple as a
Cool.
shape. That's kind of was what Jefferson used.
And then reused stained glass window from the New England church. That's what I think is awesome.
Yeah, there in the foyer, the recommend desk right behind, there's a stained glass where they said they obtained like 100-year-old stained glass from a church that was being torn down, a Protestant church. And so, if you know if you're familiar with like the Star Valley or the Provo City Center Temple, they have pretty similar kind of stained glass windows behind the recommend desk
When they
that have
say
been
obtained,
salvaged from other churches.
when they say obtained, does your mind kind of go, and I know this isn't the case, but I think, yeah, we obtained it. And then there's like one guy who like winks the solid wink like he stole it in the middle of the night or something like that. No, we happened upon the stained glass window from the New England church, and everyone just sort of winks and goes, and it's staying. And now it's going to be behind locked doors, and they can't get it back. I don't know. My mind always wants it to be nefarious, and I'm sure it never is ever a nefarious stained glass window stealing.
I'm sure there's a story behind it where some church employee just happened to be in contact with someone that was selling old stained glass windows. I don't know.
Well, and I tell you
Um,
what, you can look forward to that in some future either YouTube video from the church or an article in the Leahona. You know that's coming.
Perhaps, yeah.
How did they get this? 5 ways they were able to.
Well, the governor of Virginia also was there at the Temple Open House. He called it magnificent. Governor Glenn Youngkin. He is obviously kind of paying homage to Virginia as like the place of religious liberty. He liked to just celebrate that there's lots of religions in Virginia and is welcoming the church there.
Then we moved to Saratoga Springs, which is the hottest ticket in town. I haven't seen them scalping these tickets yet, but as we get towards the end, that's going to start happening. The Saratoga Springs Utah Temple Open House.
Yeah, when you release them way far in advance and don't release them and release them for every day of the next 3 months, then that's kind of bound to happen. So if you go to their website to reserve tickets for the Saratoga Springs Utah Temple, there's 5,544 that are available every day, and it shows you like how many are left for that day.
Jeez.
And so this is April 15th through July 8th. And so you can kind of see which days are going to be busy, which days are going to be not. But pro tip, you do not really need a ticket. This is just for spreading out the crowds. If there's a day that sells out, just go. You might have to wait in line a little bit, but they won't turn you away.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do that way, be patient. Don't be the guy that or girl that shows up and is like, I've been waiting in line for two. It's like, yes, of course you have, because there were tickets and a certain amount of people that were going to come this day, and anticipate that your Friday nights and your Saturdays are going to be insane at that open house. I think I'm going to go. Are you heading over to that? Do you think you want to? Are you going to?
I could, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go to that too. Maybe that will be the training wheels
Our
of our.
practice.
I'll pick you up from work in Salt Lake and we'll drive down. We'll go do it. We'll do it in an off hour when we can eat all the cookies in the open house by ourselves. Are they doing cookies? Are they doing a separate building?
I don't know. The couple dedication open houses I've been to, they haven't done that, but
Okay. Well,
just depends.
I'm waiting to give my commitment to find out what the after snacks are. And then we can go down. This I've been following sort of tangentially about Heber. Did we get the lighting permit? Are we making it light skies at night?
Um, Kind of looks like now they're going into the other direction, that maybe they're not going to ask to do what the church is asking for. They're going to have a meeting on March 30th, and then like a city council meeting on April 5th to adopt a new ordinance. And the county manager there says that maybe the code won't match what the church has asked for.
Hmm.
And so the church also needs a height permit, which they haven't asked for yet, but they're going to need if they're going to start construction. Right now, the limit there is 35 feet for any building, but the temple's 85 feet tall, and the spire is 195 feet tall. So they're still going to have to get that permit before they proceed with construction.
Which I think is interesting, right? Because if you look at church history, especially like if you go to St. George, Utah, I don't think it's the highest building in Washington County anymore because there are some other things. But the for a long time, the St. George Temple was the tallest building, and there was some sort of ordinance that in the town you had to be able to see the temple essentially from anywhere in the town, and that's great, and it's cool, and it's also faith promoting, and there's lots of things like you can always look to the temple and always be inspired and all of these things. And so I'm not downplaying any of that, but that was also built over 100 years ago, and when the town was a lot more members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So then you have a town like Heber City that's like, hey, I don't know, it's probably 50-50, maybe 50% members of the church and 50% not. And it's a dark sky community, which is a scientific thing. And once you make it not a dark sky community, you can't go back. And they just like it the way that they want it. And now they have this thing in place. And you think, well, why couldn't Heber City just be like St. George? And they're and and I can like both. I can think, you know what, build a low profile, dark at night building, and it can still be inspirational, still perform the ordinances, still do all the things, and it can be a different kind of thing than like what your St. George Temple is. It doesn't always have to be the same. It doesn't always have to be tall. Is there, can we not do tall? Can we change it?
Fit in with the community. Yeah,
Yeah.
come on. You can fit in with the community, their standards. So
I'll be
I
interested to
like it.
see where they compromise in this for sure. And then this was interesting too. You have Manti, that there's something going on with Manti. I had all but forgotten.
Yeah, the church has not made a big deal about the Manti Temple renovation ever since they had that switcheroo of plans and everything. They actually haven't even released any like public plans. They just said, yeah, we're going to preserve the murals, but they didn't release any renderings or anything, or really even tell us much about what's going to happen. And so, but we kind of saw this last week, they revealed kind of the front of the new annex. And kind of similar to Salt Lake, they're making the annex look more consistent with the rest of the building. They added a new Holiness of the Lord plaque, which looks a little bit more consistent with the style of the rest of the building. And so, yeah, it's been closed for 18 months. And who knows how much longer it'll be closed for.
2026. They're going to open the Manti Temple and the Salt Lake Temple in the same year. I saw that about the Salt Lake Temple, and I just was about like, okay, so maybe they're not ever opening this thing again. Pushed back to 2026.
Yeah, they say there's unforeseen challenges and all that, but they don't say what the challenges are. They
I
just said,
wish,
yeah, we're gonna.
yeah, I wish they would.
Sometimes things just get delayed and it's just compound effect, and there's not necessarily one thing that causes it.
I
But yeah, in April they're starting to install the base isolators, so they'll be putting those underneath the foundation. Right now they've laid like a concrete slab around the perimeter of the temple. It's 35 feet underneath the foundation. It's just so that the crews can work around the temple, and then they'll probably remove it after they're done.
Interesting. It's such an immense project. They haven't released a budget of what it's ultimately going to cost, have they?
The church doesn't release budgets, but a temple in uh, Colombia, the contractor reported that they had saved the church $10 million on the project. And so
Hmm.
if the saving margin was $10 million, probably
Yeah,
the whole
geez.
budget was, around 100 or so. And that's just a small temple, a new temple in Colombia. And so the Salt Lake Temple, I
Yeah. I mean, it's got to
hundreds of
be it.
millions, maybe a billion.
I was going to say I would think it would be even into the billions with how
With the
much
whole
they
temple
probably.
square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 And then also the Lion and Beehive houses. They're going to be closed pretty soon. They're opening again. What's going on there?
Yeah, you're also having a renovation. I don't probably I'm not they haven't released details about that, but
Hmm.
right after conference on April 8th, they'll be closing. The Joseph Smith Memorial Building has already closed to the public, so all those restaurants and everything are closed. And
It,
then in the fall, they'll be moving to the area around the assembly hall where they're going to remove that restroom area that's kind of attached to the wall because they're moving the rest of the wall. And by then they'll be finished with the part on the northwest, which is a new restroom facility and some gardens. So by the fall, the area by the church office building and that area by the tabernacle will be finished. So there'll be new areas of Temple Square to walk around.
and get engaged and see Christmas lights and all that.
In front of
Oh,
the scaffolding of the temple,
exactly.
yeah.
Now, when we chatted last time on the temple ticker, you talked about how at some point there's not going to be any of that stuff on the temple grounds, but it's all speculative. It was all Reddit released. It was all hush hush. Any more movement in that group or on that front?
I mean, it was taken down from Reddit, so the church obviously had copyright that they took down with that. So it wasn't some spoof or anything. It was something they were considering back in 2021. So who knows what they're considering now? It's pretty fluid. We'll see.
Yeah. Make sure you go back and listen to our last articles of news with our temple ticker if you don't know what we're talking about, because we're not going to rehash it right now, but it's scandalicious. Now, we look toward the general conference this weekend. I asked you when we spoke last to talk about some temple predictions, and I limited you to a number. So let's get through these pretty quick because, well, they are just predictions or speculations. You have 10 temple predictions. Tell me where we're going.
Okay. Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
It's
Because
going
the other one
growing
is in what?
fast.
Raleigh? Raleigh, Durham?
Raleigh. And
Okay.
both of them gotten new stakes recently, so you
Okay.
can't say that the church is in decline in that area. It's growing.
Okay.
Arizona, President Nelson hasn't announced a temple in Arizona yet, so I'm thinking maybe Flagstaff, maybe Prescott.
Okay. Okay.
Last time he announced a third temple in the area of Dallas, Texas, and Prosper. So I'm thinking that maybe Houston also deserves at least a second temple.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
come
in the
on. Get
south,
Houston a second one.
maybe near Galveston Bay area, Sugarland area.
Yeah, I like the idea of a Sugarland temple. I'd love that announcement to be announced. Sugarland, Texas. Ah, okay.
I think maybe Dublin, Ireland. If there can be one in Brussels, Belgium, there can definitely be one in Ireland, which is a lot further away from the nearest temple.
And that's probably more for convenience rather than membership, right? That'd be a nice, real small temple because the membership is strong there, just not huge.
Yeah, there's like two stakes, which is
Yep.
the same as Belgium, but Belgium's a lot closer to the Netherlands currently. So
Yeah, let Dublin have a temple. Come on, full of shamrocks and Lucky Charms in the waiting. I don't know. Yeah, I got nothing.
we'll
Uh,
see.
and then Uganda is interesting because then we get to Africa. We're thinking a lot in Africa or just this one.
I mean, there could be more, but I think Uganda's definitely probably the next country that will get its first temple there. Yeah, it's actually the country with the most members without a temple right now.
And oh no, I'm thinking Ghana. I was gonna say, isn't Ghana where the or Uganda where the MTC is, but that's Ghana, not Uganda.
That's Ghana. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Maybe another one there, maybe in Cape Coast. But
Hmm.
the next one, Osaka, Japan. The temple in Okinawa is getting finished. Right now, Osaka is a big area of membership, maybe either Kobe or Kyoto as well. So maybe one of those cities.
Okay.
Next, Santiago, Dominican Republic. So there's already one in the Dominican Republic, but this would be in the north, city that's to the north.
And it's a fairly
Um,
small island, but lots of members of the church.
yeah, there's like 25 stakes. There's
Jeez.
3 in the city of Santiago. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, get him another temple.
We know that President Nelson announced those 4 temples around the Mexico City area. So I'm thinking that maybe an area that could receive more temples is Lima, Peru. There may be one in the south part of the city that could be announced. And then for Brazil, there could be lots of places in Brazil that could get a temple, but I'm thinking maybe Florianópolis or kind of the neighboring city of San Jose. So we'll see.
And you're thinking they're going to get one, even though they just got one, and Mexico just got all those. You're saying at this, if there's 10, that Mexico and that Brazil is each going to get a temple. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
They could, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Well, of course they could. On all of these, they could, Corey. And then give me your long shot.
long shot. Um, we've seen some surprise areas where President Nelson has announced temples, such as Russia or China. I think the next place that would be a surprise would be Venezuela. It's a city that has, or a country that has had a lot of problems with its government, problems with inflation. It seems like in the past year it's kind of calmed down. Maybe it's just our US ears don't hear as much about it.
Hmm.
But a temple in Maracaibo, Venezuela, I think is well deserved. And so we'll see if that happens.
And then you made a list of honorable mentions. It's worth we'll just blast through these real quick.
Sure.
Honorable mentions.
Lehi, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Saratoga Springs, it's not big enough. Who knows? El Paso, Texas. It's hard to get across the border to Juarez, so we'll see what happens. Fairbanks, Alaska, super far north, super far from Anchorage, and then all the way down to the south, Punta Arenas, Chile. And so these would be two temples that would be the furthest north and the furthest south temples.
Hmm.
So also super isolated. Could get a temple Iquitos, Peru. Maybe another one in Uruguay in the north, maybe Rivera. Another one in northern Brazil. South, I think it's Joao Pessoa. A shout out to my mission, Cancun, Mexico.
Here we go.
I've always been incredulous that it would never happen, but now that I saw those four temples in Mexico City, it's now I believe that it will happen
Yeah.
eventually.
Especially how many
Yeah,
members of the church go to Cancun. You could do a temple session as you get off the boat on your
that's
cruise.
right.
You bet. Let's do it. Cancun.
And then maybe if not Ireland, maybe Scotland. Maybe that would be a better place.
Okay.
And then long time prediction, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, probably the most isolated place out of any of these. So we'll
And
see.
then you have a bracket. What is this about?
Yeah, so every year for the past few years, I've made like a sports bracket, basically. I have like 64 locations where I think maybe could possibly have a temple. And so if you wanted to play along, you can maybe advance the ones that you think are most likely to be announced, and we'll see what gets announced. And there's also spots on the bracket to put a wild card. So if there's something that's not already on there, you can write down there.
I love it. You'll be able to download that from the show notes with this episode. All right, sir. I've taken way more of your time than I normally do. May you may you get all 10 of your predictions right. May we get 10 more temples this weekend. It's a lashing for every temple you got wrong. So I hope that you're ready for that. I didn't tell you that going into that, but
Shouldn't have done those honorable mentions.
yeah, yep. For everyone you got wrong, I've got a cat of 12 tails, not 9. I'm going a little bit more aggressive, and you get a whip every time you get one of those wrong. I hope that's not sacrilegious. I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, that if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety
In the meantime, we'll be saving a seat for you
on the back row.
of the
The
Cultural
cultural
Hall.
hall.